In a previous video, I showed a mass rename utility widget that I'd made as an example of just how to work with utility widgets in general. Now, I've been working on this tool for a little while and adding features and doing tweaks and things like that. And I've gotten it to the point where I'm pretty happy with it. And I wanted to share it with everyone. Because it's more complex now than the basic one that I showed before, rather than going through and showing how to create one yourself, because that would be a very long video. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show how the utility works, and then I'm going to put a link in the description where you can download your own copy of the utility if you think that it would be handy. The utility consists of these 4 files: a macro library, a function library, an enum that the macro library uses, and then the utility widget itself. So to use a utility widget, you just right-click on it, run utility widget. It appears here, and then you dock it wherever you want. Where I like to put it is right up here. And so it just sits out of the way, and then anytime I need it, it's just right there. Nice and small and compact. The initial screen that comes up when you first run it, basically it's just a title screen, and it tells you to just choose what mode you want to operate in. You have rename mode, replace mode, and move renumber mode, and you can cycle through them. So I got these test files down here we can demonstrate it on. So we'll start off with rename. Choose the files. You can add any prefix or suffix. You get a preview down here at the bottom of what the new file name will look like. So if we put in a prefix, it puts it at the beginning. Put a suffix, it puts it at the ending. You click commit, give it a second, and as you can see, it has now added it to all of them. There is an undo feature. You can immediately undo anything that you've done with the utility. The undo immediately goes away as soon as you do anything else with it. So it's like you can click on assets and do things like that, move around. But as soon as you change either of these fields, you hit this button, do anything in utility, the undo option goes away. So hit undo, changes everything back. In replace, we can replace anything that appears in the names with something else. So if I wanted to replace the word warrior, it's not case sensitive, and replace it with blah. Hit commit. All right, as you see, it changed them all. Again, hit undo. You can get rid of it all. And then in the last one, it will move them to other folders or renumber them. So if you have, for example, with these ones here, where it goes, 1, 2, 3, well, there's no leading 0, and that creates problems when you're trying to sort files. So built into this utility widget is a sort functionality, and in the sort functionality, it automatically internally in the background adds in leading zeros to make the sort function work. But as an additional feature, if you rename files here, it completely replaces the entire name and numbers the files automatically. And when it numbers the files, it adds in those leading zeros that need to be there for proper sorting to happen in other functions, which you can select here with sorted and unsorted. So the way it works is on unsorted, it'll take the files in whatever order you select them. So if I select this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and whatever order I do them in, that's the order that it will number them in, the order that they were selected. So as you can see, the first file is Warrior Attack 5. But if I click sorted, now the first file is Warrior Attack 1. It sorts them, and it sorts them properly in that it without normal sorting, the way it works is if you don't have leading zeros, it'll go 1, 10, 11, 12, 2, 3, and so on. So if I replace these, call them a test, hit commit, it renames them, renumbers them starting with 01 through 012. Now, if you have the way that the renumbering works is it dynamically adds in the number of leading zeros required for the number of files you have selected. So if you have 9 or fewer files selected, it won't add in any leading zeros. If you have 10 to 99 selected, it'll add in 1 leading zero. If you have 100 to 999 selected, it'll add in 2 leading zeros, and so on. So as you can see in this case, because I had 12 files selected, it added in 1 leading zero. Now, another functionality that it can do is, and you can do both of these functionalities simultaneously. And by the way, I've got dynamic tooltips in there, so when you hover over the fields, it'll tell you what each of the fields does and what happens if you fill the field in or leave the field blank. You can also put in a folder, and it'll show down here that it's going to go from the current folder that it's in. It's going to add the folder test and move the files there, hit commit. And now it's moved them all into this subfolder test. If you hit undo, it'll undo the move. And if the folder is empty, it'll remove the folder as well. Now, one thing that also a bunch of work went into is if I'm working on files in multiple folders at the same time. So if I copy all these files into another folder, and then I go up here to the main folder and I use a filter, and I say I want to work on all of these files. And as you can see, there's 2 1s and 2 2s and whatever. So these files are in both of these folders. And I go in here and I do a renumber. It is going to separately number the files in each of the folders. So I'll show you what I mean. If I want to change this to AA test, and I want to move it to folder test, hit commit. Okay, so now we take a look at what happened. Renamed AA test, they're renumbered 1 through 12. And then down here, again, they've been moved into a subfolder from the folder they were in and renumbered 1 through 12. So it works independently on the contents of each folder for the assets that are selected. And again, if I go back and I hit undo, it'll put them all back where they belong. And because the folders were empty, it also removed them. Now, as I mentioned, just to show you here, the undo, if I go in here and I start, if I like hit the sorted button, or if I started entering in stuff in this field, whatever, anything that happens in here immediately, that undo button goes away, and you can no longer undo things. So that covers everything that it'll do. And basically, just this tools folder is zipped up. It's in the link in the description. You can download it for yourself. There is one requirement, though. You need the low entry standard library plugin, which is a free plugin on the marketplace. And frankly, I think it's a plugin that just everyone should always have. If you're working in Unreal Engine blueprints, this is just a must-have. It adds in a bunch of functionality that frankly should just be in blueprints anyway. It's just the functionality that is missing from blueprints. Again, it's free. It's on the marketplace. It's available for all versions of Unreal Engine, although at the time of recording, Unreal Engine 5.1 had just recently been released, and the update for this plugin for 5.1 hasn't yet come out, but they have done it. They're just waiting for the marketplace to approve it and update it. So that's it. I think it's a handy utility. I was originally inspired by Dev Enabled, who made just this quick off the cuff during a live stream mass rename utility for a situation that he was in. And I started working on it as just a practice on working with utility widgets, and I just kept adding features and adding features. And I've got it to the point now that I think, you know, it's basically, it's done. Everything you could possibly want in a mass rename utility is in this utility. And once you run a utility widget, unless you close it down, it just sits there forever. If I close down Unreal Editor and open it back up again, it'll be there. So it's just tucked away in the corner there, out of the way. I can do my thing, and then if I need to do a bunch of renaming, renumbering, moving, whatever, it's right there and ready to use. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. Have a good one.